Now, there was a really good piece of BBC telly earlier this week. Yes, I did say that. Matt Goodwin, pollster and professor of politics at the University of Kent, was on the lunchtime politics show on the BBC. Here's a little clip of what he had to say.
I can't remember a time in my life when I felt more ashamed by our national debate and our country as I have over the last week. I've tried to imagine how I would feel if I was a British Jew. We have a national broadcaster, the BBC, unable to call a Nazi-inspired, ISIS-inspired terrorist group terrorists. We have the same broadcaster investigating BBC Arabic journalists for expressing sympathy for Hamas. We have the institutions of our national community like Wembley Stadium showing the rainbow flag to protest against Qatar, but not showing the colours of Israel in solidarity. And we have the universities where I work, a few years ago, fell over themselves to express solidarity with George Floyd and what happened centuries ago in America, but are unable to issue the same condemnation of what's happened in Israel. Not to mention the fact we've now got schools telling Jewish children in Britain in 2023 not to show symbols of their faith, and we've got fireworks and celebrations going on Edgware Road, and we've got idiots like that guy excusing the glorification of terrorism.
Well, hang on.
Joe, I was at the protest. I was at the protest, and there's one thing he didn't mention, which were the groups of men running around physically attacking people, showing the Israel flag. There was glorification of terrorism at that protest. Those people should be treated the same way as supporters of ISIS.
And that is why we're discussing it. But there is...
Well, Matt Goodwin joins me now. Well, Matt, you gave it what for there. I have to say I agree with every word. What was the reaction?
Overwhelming. I've been flooded with emails, text messages, particularly from members of Britain's Jewish communities who, to be frank, Nigel, I think feel that many more people in our national lives should be saying what I said on the BBC. I think they feel understandably scared, anxious. I think they're wondering what has happened to our national broadcaster. I think they're wondering where the leadership has gone in this country.
Not, absolutely refusing to call what happened on the 7th of October a terrorist act by Hamas. They won't call them terrorists.
If you look at the polling that we've had just this week, 66% of all Brits say Hamas is a terrorist organisation. Only 6% say it isn't. So to many people who have been watching the BBC, the way in which, for example, they quickly regurgitated the Hamas line on the hospital bombing without bothering to verify it, this doesn't look like an organisation that's shooting things straight. And I do worry because when you look at what we've seen on the streets of Britain over the last couple of weeks, I'm in North London. I heard the fireworks going off around Edgware Road. I've seen the celebrations with my own eyes. As I said on that show, imagine if you're a British Jew, London would not feel like a particularly welcoming place.
We had Charlie Peters in Tel Aviv earlier this week saying there were British people in Tel Aviv saying they felt safer in Tel Aviv than they felt in North London. Yeah,
so I think what members of the Jewish communities are really wanting to see is more leadership. I think they're wanting to see us have a frank and open conversation about just how widespread is this sympathy for Hamas and Islamist terrorism in the country. I've just been looking at some polling today which suggests 15% of all Londoners do not view Hamas as a terrorist group. Now, that is quite striking, Nigel. 1 in 8 of all people in London say Hamas is not a terrorist organisation. I find that quite disturbing. So I'm worried, actually, about where we're headed. I'm deeply concerned about where we're headed as a country.
Well, and this on the day when the government's Tsar for integration has said there is now a permissive environment in this country where people can openly be really pretty vile towards the Jewish community. But I mean, is this, and he made the point, is this, and I believe that it is, mass immigration from Labour and Conservative governments without a thought? All diversity is good, but without a thought for integration.
Well, our experiment with mass immigration is clearly failing, and the Tsar that you just mentioned is not the first person to point this out. We had the Casey review in 2016, which was quite explicit in saying there are areas in Britain where groups are not following British law, and also where you could have children essentially spending much of their day not really being aware that they're living in Britain because those areas are so segregated. We don't even talk about integration anymore. Have you noticed that? Yeah. After the disturbances in Leicester and elsewhere, we're no longer even talking about things like community cohesion. It's almost as if that policy area has just sort of evaporated. So I do think we need to think much more seriously about this issue. And I think at the heart of it, it is about immigration. It is about the speed and scale at which we've transformed this country while not integrating people who are arriving.
And we're doing it now at higher rates, looking at the last year or so, than we've ever done it before.
Well, that's right. Net migration is now over 600,000. The small boats issue is yet to be resolved. Most of the people coming over, Afghanistan, Somalia, etc., I don't think this is going to help us address this problem. Look, but from the perspective of Britain's Jewish communities, which I just want to go back to, they are fed up and they are sick and tired of feeling as though they are treated as second-class citizens in Britain. And I would urge everybody out there to do as much as they can to speak up on behalf of those communities and give them a sense of solidarity that's missing in our national broadcaster and much of our politics.
Well, you've certainly done on the BBC earlier this week, and here too. Matt Goodwin, thank you very much.